Hi, I'm Maren and welcome back to my channel, Maren Makes It. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how I've been able to house hack. If you're not familiar with the term house hacking, it basically refers to keeping your living expenses as small as possible in order to be able to save money that way. So a lot of the time when you first hear this term, if you're anything like me, you'll probably picture some finance guy on YouTube telling you to buy a house and then rent out the extra rooms in it to your friends, or buy a duplex and then rent out the other side of it to your friends in order to use that money from their rent to pay your mortgage, basically therefore reducing your own living expenses. Or maybe you picture somebody telling you to live with your parents as long as possible in order to save money. But I'm not here to tell you either of those two suggestions. I found out a different way in order to find a way to keep my living expenses as low as possible so that I have more time and energy to work on creative projects that might not be paying me now, but hopefully will in the future. So I finally feel like I've been doing this for long enough that I can share it with you guys on YouTube. At the beginning, this was completely an experiment that I was doing, and I really didn't know if it would work out, so I was really trying to keep it quiet. I didn't want to say anything too soon. I didn't want to speak too soon. I really wanted to give it a little bit of time to get a little bit more experience and be able to give you guys my honest thoughts after doing this for about 5 months. I'm currently on my 6th one of these, so I feel like I can finally give you guys an honest, fully formed opinion on how this experience is going for me. So basically what I've been doing in order to house hack and not pay rent is that I have become a long-term house sitter slash pet sitter. So basically what I'm doing is I'm living in other people's houses, taking care of their pets, taking care of their plants, taking care of their yard while they're on vacation. Okay, so in this process of house sitting, I have cared for some really cute animals. First, I had Miso, I had Nori, I had 2 chickens whose names I can never remember. I had Abby, my sweet, sweet dog. I had 5 fish tanks. I had Archie, the little gray kitten. I had Blackbeard, I had Patches the cat, then I had Rue the rabbit, and now I have Tim and Molly. So over the last few months, I've cared for some really lovely animals and maybe some bratty ones too, although I won't put any of them on the spot and say which ones they were. But no, overall, all of the animals have been amazing, and so have the owners. So basically, I move every 3 to 6 or so weeks, and I live in other people's houses. There's a couple different advantages to this, and there's a couple different ways I can see this being useful to you guys, which is why I bring it up. So you can definitely use this for long term. So, using a bunch of different house sits as a way to avoid paying rent for a while in an area. It's also a way that you could, go on vacation, honestly, and test out living in a different area by getting a house sitting job there. Another thing is, if you're not sure if you want to commit to living in a certain city or a full-term lease, like a year-long lease in a place, this is a way that you can try out living in a place. And so when I first came to Denver, I really didn't know if I would like it here, really didn't know if I wanted to commit to being here. I still honestly don't know the answer to that, but I found out about house sitting, and I was like, this is a way that I could try living here without having to sublet an apartment from someone and having the costs associated with subletting an apartment, because you're still likely going to have, rent and utilities, even if it is, let's say, a furnished apartment that you're going to be trying out for a shorter period of time, and the terms of the lease are a little bit shorter. You're still going to have all those expenses associated with living. So the way that I've been using house sitting is I get a house sitting job, and then basically I just try to line up the next house sitting job with the end of the previous one, and then I just move around the Denver metro area every couple weeks. I pack up everything. I have limited amount of stuff because you do have to be able to fit everything that you have in your car, and then I pack everything up and I move to the next house sit. What this does for me is that it drastically reduces my living expenses so that I basically don't pay rent, don't pay electric, don't pay Wi-Fi, don't pay trash, don't pay heat, don't pay water. I haven't paid any of these bills in over 5 months. I also end up getting a lot of free food because the thing is, when people go away for several weeks on vacation, they're like, okay, this stuff's gonna go bad in the fridge anyway, feel free to eat whatever you want, basically. Plus, on top of that, I get to take care of some really awesome pets and some really awesome animals, which if you're living alone, it can be really nice to have another warm body in the house. I love animals, and I think this has been a great way to have pets, basically, but again, without the expenses that come with a pet, because I don't have to pay the vet bills, I don't have to pay for the food, I don't have to pay for the litter box stuff, I don't have to pay for, their toys. I don't have to buy any of the stuff. I have a pet without any of the expenses associated with having a pet. And honestly, taking care of a pet, especially a cat or a dog, and really taking good care of that pet can become really quite expensive and something that's kind of financially outside of my reach right now. And also, it's a long-term commitment because these animals will live for, 10 or 15 years, and then you're not just committing to those expenses in the short term, but you're also committing to them in the long term. So if you're 20 now, your dog, if you get a dog now, you're going to be 35 when that dog possibly passes away. That's a really big commitment to make, to commit to something like that for the next 15 years. If you don't know where you're going career-wise, where you want to live, if you don't want to do it alone without a partner, if you're not sure, financially what your long-term outlook looks like, and if you are not sure that you want to commit to this pet, this is a great way to be able to take care of animals. You still have the daily responsibilities of taking care of them, but you get to do a lot of the fun stuff without, the financial side of it or the vet visits and that kind of stuff involved. It's also a great way to try out some different kinds of animals. So I'm somebody, I didn't grow up with any pets. I love animals, but loving dogs is different than having a dog. Just like, I love elephants too, but I don't want to have an elephant. So this really allows me to see up close and personal what it would be like to have these pets, because I had a big dog for 6 weeks and I got to see what it would be like to actually have a dog that big, what the realities are of how much they actually need to be walked, how much energy they actually have, and what that day-to-day life looks like when you have that pet. I've also taken care of chickens. What are the realities of that? Like, how awesome is it to have fresh eggs every morning? But, what is it actually like to keep and maintain a chicken coop? That's something I learned by house sitting. So these are ways that I can basically test out having different pets, which has really been very cool too. It's also a great way, so let's say I think in my head, I want to move to Denver. Okay, well, Denver is a big metro area, not only in terms of the number of people, but also in geography. It's very spaced out. Like, do you want to live in Lakewood? Do you want to live in Inglewood? Do you want to live in Aurora? What's even the difference between Denver and Aurora? Do you want to live in downtown? If I look at a map, well, where are the tall buildings? What does this neighborhood even look like? Is this more of a, suburban family place, or is this where the young people live? Where do the young people even live? Where is it the most expensive? Oh, it's expensive everywhere. Why is that? How much square footage can you get in this area for that amount of money? How about in that area? There's so many questions if you're moving to a new city that you need to answer. And so for me, committing to a year-long lease somewhere where I didn't know anything, where I was going in blind, basically just choosing blindly on a map, like, I'm going to live here, that was way too scary of a commitment for me, both financially and just in terms of my happiness. Your happiness is hugely affected by where you live, who you live with, and what your living conditions are. Also, after a half a year of traveling and not really having an apartment, committing to a year-long lease sounded like a huge commitment to me, and living somewhere for a month already was going to feel really long compared to basically moving every week or every couple days, which is what I had been doing the previous half year, where I had really been doing a truly more nomadic lifestyle and car camping and all of this stuff. So this already felt like a lot more stability to me than that. And so it was kind of a natural transition for me to go from that kind of traveling to the house sitting stuff. Of course, like with any lifestyle choice, there's always going to be upsides and downsides. For example, if you live in a more, city area, you might have less square footage for the same amount of money that you can get, a bigger place for further outside of the city, but what city amenities can you walk to from your apartment because of your location? For example, that is an example of kind of a trade-off. With house sitting, there are going to be also lifestyle trade-offs. So on the one hand, you have this huge perk of saving a ton of money on rent, ton of money on utilities, not having these expenses at all. But on the other hand, you can only have limited stuff because you're going to be packing it up every month. And so you're really limited by what fits in your car. That's the amount of stuff you can have. Another added stress with the house sitting is to line up these jobs so that you have either a little bit of overlap between the two places, or you have one place you're moving out of and then the next place you're moving into on the same day, because you can quickly end up with sort of awkward gaps of a couple days here and there. And I've definitely had this happen to me. And those days and those gaps and those weeks end up being some of my most stressful weeks, just because I'm sleeping in so many different places in a week. And also having to figure out those arrangements. And sometimes things, change at the last moment, where a house sit is canceled for some reason because the people are canceling their traveling plans, or the dates are adjusted slightly, and then you end up with these weird gaps. And those last minute or relatively last minute changes and not knowing where you're going to sleep, tomorrow. Or I've even had it that I was sitting in a parking lot not knowing where I was going to sleep that night, and it was already 7 p.m., those are the moments that feel very stressful to me. So like with any lifestyle, there are ups and there are downs, and there are definitely pros and cons to anything. If you're still with me at this point in the video, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. You could have been doing anything with your time, but you decided to spend your time watching this video here, and that means the world to me, truly. I would love to know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I'm a little bit nervous to post this, I will say, just because I know this is a very untraditional lifestyle choice, and I don't know how people are going to feel about it. It's even something I've been reluctant to tell people in my personal day-to-day life, because it's something that's hard for people to wrap their head around. But I have been doing it for a while now. It has saved me a lot of money. I basically haven't paid rent in half a year. Anyways, I want to know your guys' thoughts. I also want to know your guys' questions. Do you guys have questions? And if yes, what are they? Feel free to put any questions or comments in the section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye, YouTube.